Welcome to the CodCast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.
Matt, we've just released an exploration announcement. Thought as a final CodCast of the year, we just have a bit of a chat about what this all means, what we're planning to do, and when we're planning to do it. Maybe a little opportunity short, mind you, to explain some of the geological information behind it. If you are interested in the detailed information, it's all in Appendix 1 and in Table 1 in the announcement. So, Matt, maybe give us a bit of a rundown on what we're planning to do straight after the new year.
Yeah, so we've got 3 programs that made it into the announcement, all of which are going to be kicking off in the first half of next year. The first and probably most exciting of them is the diamond drilling at Emmie East. So we've been talking about Emmie East for a while, on and off now. It's probably our most advanced and most exciting target. It's a sort of coincident geophysical anomaly. So that basically means it's more than one types of geophysics, both pointing us in the same direction.
Right.
Which is
multiple different bits of evidence,
Yep.
all pointing towards the same thing. And they're quite different bits of evidence, aren't they?
They are. So the two main sources of sort of smoke, I guess, in this equation are 2D seismic, which we did in I think 2020, but has just been a constant source of new information. Every time you reinterpret it, you find something new, which is showing a really nice clean cutoff on the Emmie Bluff resource. It picks it up beautifully, delineates it really well on the western side. And in fact, you've promised me you can cut in an image at this point to show everyone exactly what I mean there.
Give me the maps, I'll cut them in.
Yeah. So there's a really clean break that is confirmed by drilling on the western side. And then on the eastern side, the seismic amplitude data is showing us basically a repeat, very similar results to what we see inside the main resource.
Yeah.
So it's the physical properties of the rock, the way it reacts to sound and reflects that sound, basically sort of correlates to density.
Yeah.
And it's essentially saying similar seismic properties out to the east as we see in the guts of the deposit.
Yeah. And this deposit, so Emmie Bluff, it's our underground deposit, 400 meters below the ground.
Yep.
It's my mission to always point out this is not the ICG beneath it. It's currently sitting there with a mineral resource estimate of around 40 million tons, about 1.8% copper equivalent, 1.3% primary copper. That means there's about 600,000 tons of contained copper in this thing. So this Emmie East, how big is that in comparison to sort of an area that we're looking at?
It's a little hard to know for sure, but the anomalism, I mean, you would have seen in the map, is probably a good 20 or 30% of the size of the Emmie Bluff anomalism.
Yeah.
But what's really important to note is that both the seismic and the MT, which we'll talk about in a moment, are limited in some ways in terms of the extent of the survey.
Yeah.
So just because the anomalism is only 20 or 30% the size of the main resource doesn't mean the actual underlying cause of that anomalism is that size. It could be
As with all geophysical surveys, it cuts off.
It's right at the edge.
Yeah, right at the edge. Okay, so just in summary, you've got a 40 million ton resource that we already have in JORC resource and primarily indicated. You've got a fairly significant sort of up to 50% target next to it.
Yep.
And that's really Emmie East and that one just slightly to the south, which we're also calling Emmie East, which is the old area around MGD 42.
Yep, which is the only hole that's hit Tapley outside of the main body so far.
So we've got geophysics. We know there's Tapley, which is the host rock outside of the resource down at MGD 42.
Yep.
And I guess to put it in non-geological terms, we've looked at this in many ways, using different forms of geophysics.
Like I said, the MT, that's also, and hopefully we can get another map in here which shows the exact same spot where that seismic is telling us there's a similar sort of density rock.
Okay.
It's also telling us that the conductivity of the rock at that depth is again the same as what we see inside Emmie Bluff.
Yeah.
So conductivity in rocks generally means, sometimes it means graphite, sometimes it means salt water, but often it means sulfides.
Yes.
And that's what we are pretty much thinking is happening at Emmie East. We've got shale, which is giving us the seismic properties. That shale hopefully has sulfides in it, which is giving us the electrical properties. And both of those things are happening in the core of the deposit and out to the east.
Brilliant. Good anomalism. Kind of, if it so far from the work we've done, kind of looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. We're going to put a drill rig down there and find out if it is.
Well, it conducts sound and it conducts electricity like Emmie Bluff. So hopefully it quacks.
Absolutely. Exploration, the joy of exploration. I don't think I'll sleep for a month while we're doing it. Doubt you will either.
Well, I'll be on the rig for some of it, so,
Yes.
kind of have to sleep, otherwise it starts to get difficult.
Yes, exactly. Health and safety. Now, in a minute or less, Oakden and Canegrass,
Yep.
down south, 40-ish k's away from Emmie East. What are we doing there?
So, well, they're two separate deposits. So let's deal with Canegrass first. That's going to be a heliborne EM survey. Essentially, the job of that is to map out the Tapley. Now, at Canegrass and at another prospect we've got called Oakden North, we have some interesting sniffs in terms of either historical drilling or historical hydrogeochemical work.
Yep.
But they're both, for their own specific reasons, we don't have a walk-up drill target yet. So the objective of the heliborne EM is to map out the Tapley, and then using what we know about how the geometry of the Tapley influences where the copper mineralization sits, that will hopefully give us enough of a walk-up target that we can go out there and drill. So we already know there's something interesting going on because of the other data. Next step is find out exactly where to drill to test that. And that's what the EM's going to do.
There's an old holes there that's hit copper. It's a pretty big area. It's too big just to go and start having a crack with the drill rig.
Yep.
So to save costs, we're going to, and to obviously understand it better, we can get some heliborne EM out, narrow it down and generate some drill targets.
Yep.
Now we've got drilling down at Oakden as well, another open pit style target, sort of MG14 style, relatively shallow. There's a couple of old copper hits down there.
Yeah, Oakden's kind of at the next stage along from where Oakden North and Canegrass are. So we've got a historical drill hit, and it's essentially given us a walk-up drill target.
Yep.
So we know where the existing hit is. It's 3 meters at 1.15% copper.
Yep.
And we know that around it, there isn't any drilling that's really tested that to try and extend it any further. So,
and just to explain the Emmie Bluff, Elizabeth Creek style mineralization for a sec. I was about to ask you a question about what can shareholders expect from drilling if successful. Down there, you talked about 3 meters at 1.15%. Right?
yeah.
Who cares? That's a pretty skinny intercept, right?
Look, it would be if you're in Mount Isa or if you were in IOCG down at the Olympic Dam type depths. But the difference with our mineralization is essentially you take those vertically oriented deposits and you flip them over.
Yeah.
So ours is all about the plan view. It's all about the scale in the north, south, east, west.
Yeah.
Yes, the individual drill hits are pretty skinny, but the idea is that you can go 100 meters, 200 meters, 500 meters, maybe a kilometer in any given direction. And you're
4.5 for one part of Emmie Bluff.
Absolutely, yeah. It's 4.5 square kilometers. And
so just to put it into context, you've got your Mount Isa style are often quite skinny. The true width is relatively thin, but you've got multiple little loads. And if you drill down the structure, you're going to get 20, 30, 40 meters, often, sometimes more.
Yeah.
These ones kind of flipped over
Exactly.
on top of each other. You got something fairly flat, fairly thin, but laterally extensive.
Yeah, if we could drill horizontally, we could get our own, multiple 100-meter hits. But unfortunately, it's pretty expensive and tough to do.
That bit in the JORC table one where it says, does the geometry of the deposit have any relation to this intercept? I think you'd have a trouble saying no if you did that.
It's it might.
I do see it occasionally in others
attention.
where they've said no, and you think, yeah, you cheeky. The reality is, drilling straight down, you don't get big, thick intercepts, but when they're laterally extensive, you can end up with 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, and in Emmie Bluff's case, 600,000 tons of contained copper plus the cobalt, right?
Yeah.
So not necessarily the sexiest drill intercepts to put in the headlines of a announcement, but it adds up to an enormous amount of copper.
Yeah, for us, it's just about understanding what success looks like, what is good enough in this context, and it's surprisingly small. Some of our best hits at Emmie Bluff, for example, which is the first round of drilling we'll be doing in February, if we were to get 4 meters at more than 1% copper, that would probably mean that you could have potential, as we were talking about before, to increase the Emmie Bluff resource by that 30, 40, 50%. And given the scale of Emmie Bluff, it's a small hit, but it indicates significant potential for lateral expansion.
Well, it would be the first major discovery outside of the existing defined resource in 3 years. And that would be very, very exciting indeed, because it would mean two things, right? Not only is there more copper, but also that there's potential for more of these to occur as well.
Yeah. These things don't tend to occur on their own. I mean, you just look at MG14, Windabout, Gully. They're all quite clustered together, and then they between them they produce a decent amount of tons. As far as we've been able to tell so far, no one's found any of those repeats up at Emmie Bluff, and that's what Emmie East is all about, finding those repeats.
Yep, and we've done the work, defined the targets. Next stage, the spear of destiny.
Yeah, stick of truth.
I become very superstitious around these drilling periods, and I'm slightly ashamed to admit it, but I think it's a reflection of, one, how much we care, and two, how stressful it is drilling these things. It matters. There's 1 million tons contained copper equivalent, 800,000 tons of copper, so we've already got a lot of copper. But it's still exciting to get the rigs out. I think people want to see the rigs turning. We've raised some money to go and do it, so able to do it. Right, when do you start? When do we head off to site?
The rigs will be turning 2 or 3 days either side of the 1st of February. Got about 2,000 metres of drilling to do at Emmie Bluff, which we think will knock off in about 4 weeks. And the joy of this particular type of drilling is that the tapley is very distinct. So we'll know pretty much immediately if we hit the tapley. And
you can't miss it, can you?
No, it's a very dark black rock in the middle of 2 red rocks, so hard to miss. And we'll have the XRF on site, so we'll know straight away whether, we'll know when we hit the shale, and we'll know whether it's mineralized.
Excellent. And you'll also be taking the GoPro out with you. So
yes,
I've had a few messages saying people really like the behind the scenes stuff. The lab episode, which took 40 minutes to film, and we had to be there anyway, and about an hour to edit, has now been our highest viewed podcast ever. And why I think it's interesting, I enjoyed editing it and actually seeing things as I was doing that and understanding it more and doing that. So we'll do a real, because we're doing RC and diamond.
Yes, yep.
And we got yourself, I mean, you're a veteran of dozens of drilling campaigns, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of meters of both.
Oof, yeah.
So there'll be some commentary, we'll get the video cameras out. As always, we're not here to make videos, but as something quickly and easily to do on the site. I love giving people a bit of insight into what happens, what drilling looks like and everything else.
Yeah, no, it's certainly interesting, and hopefully we'll have some nice black rocks to hold everyone's attention.
Yes, we won't be showing those on the video due to ASX rules unless the announcement's already gone out, but we'll certainly we'll get a really nice behind the scenes.
Sure.
Excellent. So with that, thank you very much. I was just looking on the YouTube stats the other day. The CodCast has had over 8,000 views since we started just 6 months ago, which is
8,000.
That's decent.
Okay.
And thank you to everyone for viewing, and hoping you have a very, very pleasant Christmas. We'll be fairly busy over Christmas preparing for drilling, but hopefully get a short break as well, and look forward to seeing you in the new year.